Welcome back to another episode of the Plate Up Podcast. This is episode 17. Once again, we are back. It is D High, the Coov, and JD Hugh. What is going on, fellas?
How's it going?
Man,
11.
let's go ahead and kick it on into the weekly catch up. Mr. Coov, how was your week and what you been playing, brother?
You know, my week has been pretty good. Games was mostly Warzone. Again, still, I don't know what it is about that game that just sucks me in. I have all these other games I want to play. I have this massive backlog, and I'll sit down at my computer and I'm like, all right, I'm going to play something. I'm going to stream it, and I get a ping on Discord saying, "Hey, you want to play Warzone?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course, let's do it." Every time. But I did start streaming a new game with a buddy of mine. We started doing Star Wars: The Old Republic. So it's the MMO that they released. So I did a little bit of that with him on Wednesday. And then I took my weekend to my in-laws' lake house. Now that it's summer, I go there a lot with the family. But it was just the Meg and I this weekend, which was pretty nice to have the place to ourselves. Very relaxing. Hence the shaggy look today. And like not shaved and all that fun stuff. But D, what did you do?
Man, my week has been pretty chill, man. Work as usual, good stuff there. And then my son, his birthday is in a few days, and since I won't be able to see him on his birthday, we kind of celebrated a little early. So this week I was able to give my son his birthday gifts and kind of celebrate with him. He's going to be 15 on the 30th. And so I was very excited for that, man. My not so little son is getting huge on me, man. This dude is 6'3" and gonna be 15 in a few days. So I have a giant on my hands. So other than that, man, this week has been very chill. I myself have been kind of jumping in and out of Warzone. You know, it's something about just the casual run in Warzone, man. Whether you jump in solo or with a team, it does have its hooks in me, man. Just like you, Cove, and I enjoy it very much. But I did start a new game on my Nintendo Switch, and that is Ultimate Alliance, the Marvel game, and it is the part 3. I already beat 1 and 2 years ago, and I bought part 3 recently and jumped in on that, and that is very fun so far. Right now, I'm still in the beginning section where you have the Guardians of the Galaxy, and I'm having a blast with it so far, so stay posted for that one. Mr. JD, how's your week? What you been playing, brother?
Man, I think I streamed maybe one time this week, maybe twice. I've been busy. It's been a busy week for me. So I streamed Warzone. That's the only game I streamed this week. I don't even think I attempted to stream anything else. I think Wednesday came up and I was like, nah, forget it. Thursday came up. I said, nope, don't have time. Friday came up. I was like, nope, gonna go scuba diving this weekend. So it was a hard no for me on a lot of streaming. I did get scuba certified this weekend, so I am now a open water scuba diver. So I can go anywhere I want as long as I have a buddy. And then on top of that, I also have accepted a new position, which I'll be starting at the beginning of August. It's just so that I can wrap up open enrollment at my current employer because I don't want them to get shafted by me moving to a new employer. But it is a pretty good pay raise, and I get 100% work from home. So it's going to work out really well for the fam and me.
Congrats,
But other than that, yeah, thank you, appreciate it. Other than that, there's really not been a whole lot going on. It's just wrapping all these items up, right? Interviews and getting all that stuff together for changeovers and scuba diving and all that crap. So other than that, I think we got some news stories, right, D?
Absolutely, we got some news stories, and that is going to kick us on into the news corner. I'll go ahead and kick us off because this news story directly affected me, and this rarely happens. I built a PC. Well, this is my second PC that I built a while back, the one that I am currently recording from right now. And this story has to do with a hacker remotely wiping internet connected hard drives. More specifically, those from the Western Digital brand. I myself have a hard drive connected to the Western Digital brand, which had all my internet files and all my PC files on it. And so Thursday, after work, I decided to log on to my computer. And what do I find but my computer will not boot at all. And so I tried to tinker with it as much as I could. I end up having to reinstall Windows on my computer, re-download every program. So even included old episodes of the Plate Up podcast, gone.
Oh no.
So
That's
thankfully
terrible.
they were uploaded. Some of them I do have, the unedited versions, and I can keep those. And then some of them are gone forever. But yes, the Western Digital brand was hacked remotely by someone. They don't know who yet. The investigation continues. But this is the reason I posted it, was because I found this story later Friday, and it directly connected to me losing my stuff and everything. So. Well, that was one of my news stories, and I'm gonna kick it on over to Mr. Coov, because I know you have two, sir. So hit us with your first one.
I do. You've been hitting us with this trend lately of having two, and I felt like I need to step up my game. But I'm gonna hit one that has to deal with Netflix. So as we've discussed in prior podcasts, Netflix has this thing for buying shows and continuing their seasons and then just canceling them. And one fan favorite was Lucifer. So this was one that was picked up by Netflix. They continued it on for 2 additional seasons. And then there was this huge fan crowdsource to get them to keep going. And Netflix did. They added 1 more season. They said, okay, we'll do 1 more. This is it. This is the final season. We're going to wrap up all the storylines. I'm a huge fan of Lucifer. I've really enjoyed the show. And, as I've mentioned in previous pods, if it has to do with heaven and hell, a TV show, I'm in it. I'm on it. So I finished Lucifer actually this week, and the ending was a little disappointing. And I figured, for a series finale, it's going like the ways of Soprano and Seinfeld and Game of Thrones. It's just not really satisfying. And then I punched into Google. I wanted to figure out what the ending actually meant, because they left a lot of unanswered questions. And very first result, Netflix has renewed it for 1 more season, season 6. So they put up on Twitter, they put 666, and they had 2 of them dissolve away and just had the 1-6 in the middle. And then below it said the final season. So if you're a fan of Lucifer on Netflix, it's coming back for 1 more to wrap everything up, and then they're done.
Okay. Yeah, this is a show that's still on my radar, man. At some point I got to sit down and binge it all, but I keep hearing good things about this show. The only stuff I've seen from Lucifer was when they did the crossover with the CW shows, with the Arrowverse. That's the only stuff I've seen from it. Other than that, I just have heard it's really good, and at some point I got to get in on this.
I mean, it's a great show.
Yeah, Jenny used to watch the show all the time. Well, not all the time, but she used to watch it pretty regularly. I never really could get into it, and I don't know why. I don't know if I can't just get behind that member of Lucifer, or why. I don't know what it is. There's something about it just doesn't click for me. But I'm actually surprised that it only has 6 seasons, considering this thing's been around for a long time. I feel like a lot longer than 6 years. So I'm actually was expecting you to say, like, here's season 12 or here's season 13, and you're like season 6. And I'm like, I've been seeing it on Netflix for a long time. What the hell have they been doing?
Did it not
Get
get
it?
canceled
What the
and come
hell?
back at a point?
It did. It was canceled.
Okay,
And
okay.
then the fans wanted it back, so they brought it back for season 5. And that was the extension for the final. And then now at the last minute, Netflix has extended it again for 1 more season.
I honestly just expected this thing to have, like I said, 10, 12 seasons at this point. So it's a little shocking to me.
It's a good show, but I mean, it definitely kind of follows all the cop detectives formula. You had like Castle, where you had a writer come in and join the police. Here you have the devil come in and join the police and help them solve crime. So I mean, it's following a formula. So I can see maybe people getting tired of it. I enjoyed it because it is that heaven and hell kind of theme, but I can see why it didn't go 10 seasons. All right, JD, what do you got for us?
So mine follows a path that we were on last week, and that is about Xbox Game Pass. And Microsoft has launched that Windows 11 will have a slew of gaming features, one of them being the Xbox Game Pass will be automatically installed with Windows 11. So we talked about Game Pass the other day, and is it worth it? Is it not? How does that kind of play out? It seems like it's going to be the dominant streaming feature from video games based on our conversations that we've had. So interesting to see that Microsoft's made this move to go ahead and load it with Windows 11. I think that they're going to find more people pissed off about it than excited about it. And the reason being is because the gaming community, while it's large, is not so large that every Windows 11 should have to have an Xbox Game Pass. And so I wonder what that does to a person who is just using it for the operating system, is now getting a slew of add-on crap that they don't ever use or need. It's just going to take up hard drive space. So I think it's from a gaming computer or from a gaming perspective, everybody's going, yeah, but what about those computers that are barely cutting Windows 11 operating system requirements, right, with the RAM and the hard drives and so forth? And now you add on Xbox Game Pass. Is it going to be removable? Is it going to be a fixed thing? We don't know. Microsoft hasn't said, but it seems like since they're integrating as part of the OS, it would seem like it's something that's probably going to be fixed. And I wonder how that will be received from the non-gaming community who's going to be using this, at home.
Yeah, I think it's going to be something that's removable. I mean, that's kind of how PCs are made these days. I mean, they'll add stuff on there whether you want it or not, and then you just have the choice to take it away. I mean, not everybody that's getting into Windows 11 is going to be messing with, Xbox. I mean, I think you kind of put it on there as a selling point to say, hey, in case you wanted to try it out, here you go. Jump in if you want to, and if you don't, take it off. So I think that's kind of how they'll play it. But I do see, especially if it's included, a lot of people just trying it out just because. I think it's a good, solid marketing strategy for Microsoft.
Mm-hmm. And the Game Pass itself doesn't take up a lot of space on your computer. It's if you download the games, now you're using up gigabytes worth of memory. But like the pass itself is just a launcher. So it's fairly small in comparison, but I can definitely see the non-gamers or the non-Xbox fans like kind of being irked and irritated because I mean we remember like when Windows 7 first came out, they had like Minecraft pre-installed and all these games pre-installed, and people were like, "Well, I don't play Minecraft. I don't want this on here." I can see both sides. I think you're right. I think the gamers are going to be excited for it. I think they're like, "Well, it's there. I already have it. Great," and it might pull some new people over. I don't know. Especially if they do like, here's a free month, of Game Pass for you to play around with. Give the people something to get them into it.
I think you're right, but if it becomes part of the OS and it's not removable, like so much of the bloatware they already throw on there, I think that's when it becomes an issue, right? Because like Dee said, if I want to remove it, I should have the ability to remove it. But what we've seen Microsoft specifically doing in the past is they're now making this part of the OS and you can't remove it without screwing up your operating system. And so it becomes one of those that just says repair or update, not uninstall. And so I hope they don't do that. I hope they give the people an option to remove. I think giving them a free trial when you buy a new PC will probably definitely drag people in. I'm excited about it. I think, with the Windows 11 upgrade, for those of us in the gaming community, it's definitely a plus. That we talked about, it's only $15, $16 a month, which is not super expensive, especially if you're already enrolled in like, Ubisoft or something like that, where you're already paying that membership and you just flip yours over and pay the same price for way more games. I think it's going to be definitely a plus.
Well, I'll go ahead and jump on to my next news story, and we're looking at some movies, baby. And we've had it confirmed that there is another Transformers movie coming. And we talked about this and our love for Beast Wars. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been confirmed that we are indeed getting 3 of the Maximals in the Transformers movies. And I really didn't care which of the Maximals was in there except for one. If I don't get Optimus Primal, it was a wash for me. And ladies and gentlemen, Optimus Primal has been announced as one of the 3 Maximals that will be in there. So Optimus Primal is going to be in there. Arizor is going to be in there. And Rhinox is going to be in there. So those are the 3 Maximals that will be in the next Transformers movies. And dude, I'm glad because it's away from Michael Bay now. So we're going to get a whole different take on this thing. And these are actually going to be prequels to the Michael Bay movies. So this is going to take place like back in the 90s and stuff. So hells yeah.
Can I just say our podcast is starting to take on a Simpsons role in predicting the future? Clearly, Hollywood listens to our podcast because we were talking about how we need a Beast Wars movie because we just love the Beast Wars so much. So to Hollywood listening, thank you so much for listening to us. We have a million more great ideas for you. I'm excited for it. When I saw you post that up on our board, I'm like, oh, you have to have Optimus Primal. If you don't, what are you doing with your life? So I'm glad that they announced it there. Yeah, I was reading that it's like a sequel to the Bumblebee movie, but it's a prequel to all the Michael Bay movies. I did not see the Bumblebee movie. That's on my list. I have to go see. But I'm excited that they kind of gone back a little bit, and I really want to see how they do a live action Beast Wars, especially Optimus Primal. I'm really curious to see how they kind of construct him together, because you can't make him look like a machine, because he looked like an ape, like a flesh and bone ape. But I don't know. I'm curious. I'm curious to see how they do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with the
Go ahead, brother.
just with the technology the way it is today, and the green screens and everything else they can do, I mean, it'll probably end up being a pretty lit movie. I mean, let's be honest, right? I mean, it's going to be hard to disappoint Transformer fans who grew up in the 90s, right? Because anything that's better than the cartoon that we had back then is going to be a plus. But, I mean, there is obviously a way to screw it up, but I think we're going to be in for a treat for sure.
I think to reboot the franchise and to bring in the Maximals, this is how you get the hardcore fans back in. One, it's not Michael Bay. That plus one already, And then to add in the Maximals, that just brings in all the original fans. They're all going to be in love with that idea. And to hear Optimus Prime and Optimus Primal interacting with one another, hells yeah, I'm in for that. So that's good stuff right there. But Mr. Coov, your next story, please, sir.
All right. So this is the Played Up podcast, and we talk about Warzone. So, of course, I'm going to have to talk about what Raven is doing to their servers and with the Season 4 update. So, over the last couple of weeks, we've seen a lot of changes when it comes to weapon balancing, getting weapons where they need to be, and making sure everything is as balanced as possible. With the MG LMG coming out, that thing was broken. So much fun to use, but it's fixed. The recoil's really bad on it now. But one thing that fans have been complaining about over and over again is dead silence. It's too common in drops, and it lasts too long, and it's a great advantage because you hear literally nothing. So Raven has finally decided to address it. They have said they are going to fix it. They don't know exactly how yet because they want to make sure they do it right, which I appreciate. I'm glad that they're taking the time to actually think about it rather than just throw a fix out there and then have that blow up and be another issue. So they're gonna fix it somehow. They know it's such a prominent strategy in the game that they don't want to break it completely to where no one uses it anymore. But in conversations I've had with a lot of people in the various community, they're excited that this fix is coming.
I mean, it feels like Warzone is a game that is constantly in work. It feels like they are always having to correct and update something. This is probably the most patched game I have ever seen in my entire life, man. Like, they have to patch and fix something on a weekly basis because it's like, hey, we changed what the street lamp looks like. Now 3 guns are broken, in the loadout. So now that's got to be fixed. And then, of course, that makes a vehicle bounce, unrealistically in the game. Like, we got to fix that. So I'm like, dude, what the hell is going on over there where you guys have to patch something, 15 times a week? Like, dude. But I mean, that doesn't take away from the fun of the game. I still have an absolute blast with Warzone every time I play it. Winning or losing, I'm still having fun with it. So I mean, I expect them to continue to patch and do this thing, and Warzone could have some long shelf life to it, man.
Yeah, I kind of tend to agree with you, D. I'm like, how do you patch something and then something else immediately breaks? Because, like, how did you write this program that a street lamp is now connected to a machine gun that's connected to a frag grenade that makes you invisible? I mean, how the hell did y'all write this?
I want to know is how do they figure it out?
You're right. How do people figure it out? I just have never seen a game that is this tied to something so stupid. Oh, we fixed the grenade issue, but now you can't go into half the map because it's tied to the street lamp that we took away. It's like, what? It blows my mind how many patches. I mean, it becomes a point where everybody checks the patch notes on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. Every single Tuesday, patch notes are released because you want to see what they've changed. I kind of look at it as kind of a niche as well, because now everybody's excited about Tuesdays and they look at Tuesdays, right? And they find out what's changed in the game and they come back and they play it. So I find it a little unique, right? That we have a game that has to be patched every single week and usually gigabyte patches. But on the flip side, it's still a fun game, and that's what kind of draws you in is the concentrate. And then now we know that there's going to be a new map at launch of the next Warzone or the next Call of Duty game. So how much more stuff's going to be broke again? And I'm glad they're getting rid of or lowering the dead silences, because again, I do agree. Every single chest you open seemed to pop out a damn dead silence or a munitions box. And while that was fun, it's like the whole point of this is supposed to be getting minimum loot and then fighting other people and taking their money to go to the buy stations. Instead, what you've done is you popped out dead silences everywhere, and people are running upstairs and gunning down there. Now, I do say it's almost a counter for the campers, though, right? Those that are sitting there up in the rooftops just waiting, you can take a dead silence, pop out, and kill them, and that's your advantage. But on the flip side, what else are they going to do? Are they going to create a new perk that kind of offsets dead silence? That'd be kind of a way to do it as well. It's interesting to see what they're going to do. I'm excited about it either way. Like I said, it's a game that I love to hate and a game that I hate to love at the same time.
I mean, that's it exactly, right? I mean, all these patches that we've been through over the last year and a half, and so many patches, they've never really looked at the perks. And now that they're actually looking at some of the drops that are available and looking at the perks, because they're talking about modifying some of those a little bit, it's finally maybe going to have to change strategies. Because you're right, a camper will just sit on top of a roof somewhere, hang out. You can't get to them without them turning around and hearing you. So dead silence was kind of your counter to that. I'm personally okay with dead silence. I've been wiped out many a time by people using dead silence, and it's frustrating. I get it, but then use it, right? Because I feel like a lot of the people that I interact with that complain don't use it because they're like, well, it's broken, I hate it, I'm not going to use it. Well, why? if you know it gives you the advantage, use it. I mean, that's my take on it. I agree it needs to be modified, because if you do kill someone while you're in dead silence, it resets the clock and you get the full dead silence again. So I do get that if you're in a squad and you wipe them out, you have dead silence for 2.5 minutes. I mean, it's insane. But they need to change that. But I'm not. There are people saying just get rid of it, just take it out, delete it from the game. I'm like, no, still got to keep it. Right. Yeah. I'm like, and JD hit it nail on the head. It's for the campers, because they're sitting up in that house in the corner, hearing you walking around on the wood floor. You have to have a way to surprise them. So I'm curious to see what they do.
When Shadowcat said, what do you think is going to be next? Loadouts dropping from the chests?
They did do that.
Yeah, for a little bit.
Loadout drops.
At the very, when they updated something, it was in Superstore, you could get loadouts.
That's right.
Well, that is going to bring an end to the news corner this week, and that is going to bring us to the topic of this week. And ladies and gentlemen, is there anything more inspirational than a good sports movie? That's exactly what we were talking this week. We are talking about our favorite sports movies of all time. And we have compiled our list. Ladies and gentlemen, we got some good ones for you. So we're going to go ahead and kick it on over to Mr. J.D. Hugh. Hit us with your first sports movie, my man.
Well, one of the ones is, if you're not first, you're last. And that's right, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about Talladega Nights.
Shake and bake, baby.
Ricky Bobby. We're going shake and bake. We're going Wonder Bread over the windshield as we're driving, because there's not an advertiser we'll turn down. We're talking about Talladega Nights. It's the only movie that I think I've been able to watch about NASCAR that's actually been entertaining and not about an actual story that happened at NASCAR. And everybody remembers the scene from Baby Jesus. And the grandpa getting mad about Baby Jesus, and he say, "It's my Jesus, now pray to which one I want." We got a bunch of rambunctious kids just doing whatever the hell they want. One of the best movies. Come on, I don't think you can say otherwise. Comedy movies, not about necessarily sports. And I know a lot of people kind of go on and on and on about, is NASCAR a sport or is it not a sport and all this other jazz. But at the end of the day, funny sports movie. Can I get a heck yeah?
I'd like to thank the sweet Baby Jesus, young, precious, curly-haired Baby Jesus.
Let's talk about all the product placement in the movie as well.
I still like whenever I'm in an awkward situation, I'll sit there and go, I don't know what to do with my hands. What do I do with my hands? No, I love Talladega Nights, and it was a movie that at first I saw it the first time I actually didn't really like it, and it was just like I'm like, there's so many better Will Ferrell movies out there. I don't like Talladega Nights, and then I saw he did the basketball one, which did not make the list, and I'm like, oh no, that was terrible. Let me go back to Talladega Nights and watch that again. I'm like, oh no, this is actually pretty funny.
Yeah. I'm on fire. I'm on fire.
Great movie. Always makes me laugh now.
Dude, Talladega Nights was one of those ones that caught me off guard. I remember renting it the first time and putting it on, and I was just kind of laid back on the couch, casually watching it. And dude, it didn't take long before the jokes start kicking in. And then next thing I know, I'm sitting up on the front end of the couch, dying laughing, like holding my stomach laughing at some of the stuff in there. Ricky Bobby is one of the most memorable characters from Will Ferrell. And this dude was absolutely hilarious, man. I mean, from him doing the interview, he was like, I woke up this morning, I pissed excellence. Like, dude, it's like one of the funniest, like, movies from that dude, man. And just everybody's interactions between him, his buddies in there, his pit crew, like, everybody is hilarious. His dad, telling him he take drugs to his car and then come to find out it was a thing of Lucky Charms. Like, dude, it's hilarious, man. That is a riot, dude. Talladega Nights is one of those movies. If it's on, you gotta sit and watch it, man, for real.
Yep.
All right,
Yeah,
Mr. All right, go ahead, bro.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
All right, Mr. Coov, your first one, please, sir.
All right. Well, as my co-hosts were so kind to point out to me today, as I was rushing back from my weekend vacation, as you can see, I did not have time to clean up. So I am channeling one character from my pick. He's not the main character at all. But when it comes to sports movies, you got to have a good golf movie. And what better golf movie than Happy Gilmore with Adam Sandler? So I am channeling, apparently, the caddy that Happy ends up with. Big bushy beard. I don't have the long hair. You can thank genetics for that. But apparently I am the caddy today. So Happy Gilmore, one of my favorite Adam Sandler movies by far. I really love his older stuff. So like your Billy Madison, your Happy Gilmores. But this is like one of my favorites. With him either screaming at the hole saying, why don't you want to go to your home? Just go to your home. Or, the fight with Bob Barker. One of the top scenes in any movie, hands down. I love this movie end to end. I could just talk about this one forever.
It's The Price is Wrong.
Dude,
Price is Wrong.
This was my movie growing up. I remember when I first saw Happy Gilmore, like it was like the instant classic where you knew I'm going to watch this so many times, dude, because it is so funny. And like you said, the fight with Bob Barker is the scene that makes the movie, man. Like it just was on like 2 nights ago and it came on right on the fight scene with Bob Barker. So I had to sit and watch it, man. And it's like funny, like he thinks he knocks Bob Barker out, and then Bob Barker reaches up and grabs him by the neck and starts beating the dog shit out of Happy Gilmore, man. And he's like, I think you've had enough. Turns around, kicks him again in the face. Now you've had enough, bitch. And then walks off like, shadow boxing. Like to see that from Bob Barker was such a shock to all of us back then. Because all we knew was Bob Barker from The Price is Right. And so that was such a funny ass movie, man. And then it also gave us one of the greatest movie villains ever in Shooter McGavin, man. Who doesn't love Shooter McGavin? Shooter!
Yeah, and the whole reason he got into it, right, is to save his mom's home. But or was it his grandma's home? I think it was his grandma's home, right? But funny movie. I mean, starts off with him playing golf with a hockey puck or a hockey stick. Absolutely hilarious movie through and through. I don't think there's not a scene in there that's not absolutely funny. I think that kind of Adam Sandler's prime, right, was right around this time. Everybody was loving him. Every movie he was in was going right to the top. It was kind of Will Smith of the sports things that he was always doing, or the little characters that he was playing, and so it was always really really good to watch. And this one being one of the top ones.
I mean, this movie has made such an impact. You go to like any Top Golf or anything like that, they even say in their little intro, "Do not swing like Happy Gilmore." They do not want you to do that approach. So I mean, like for sure, I mean, it's made an impact.
I mean, that's what it's all about, man. Who doesn't love that movie? Every character in there was memorable and hilarious, man. Chubbs with the one hand, dude. Like just the scenes where like he goes to shake his wooden hand and crunches the fingers, man, and then like hands them back to him. Like all that stuff is just hilarious, man. I love that movie. Oh, one of my favorite scenes from that movie, Ben Stiller at the old folks' home, man.
Yeah,
Dude. She said, "My
yes.
fingers are hurting." He was like, "Oh, your fingers are hurting? Well, now your back's going to be hurting because you just pulled landscaping duty." Like, dude, what a funny movie, man. I really love Happy Gilmore. That's not even a guilty pleasure movie for me. That's just a feel good movie when you want to have a laugh and pep your spirits up, man.
And I love how Adam Sandler brings Chubbs back in Little Nicky. Like when he meets his mom, who's an angel, and she goes, "Oh yeah, we have a dance or a salsa instructor or something like that," and it's Chubbs, all in the hips, all in the hips.
Dude, this is what it's all about, man. Those good old sports movies, bro. But I'm gonna go ahead and jump into my first one, ladies and gentlemen. When I was a young kid, man, there was one sport that I just never got a chance to play, but this movie made me want to play it really bad, and that was hockey. And there was one team that made me want to do that, ladies and gentlemen, and that was the Mighty Ducks. We're talking about D2, the Mighty Ducks, the sequel to the Mighty Ducks franchise. The Mighty Ducks was a good movie. The very first one was very good. It was a feel-good story about a very underwhelming hockey team coached by an ex-pro hockey player, and he leads them to glory. But then D2 took it up a notch, and they let these Mighty Ducks represent Team USA in the Junior Olympics. And they had to go against their good old rivals from Iceland. This was a classic movie. It gave us so many great characters. It was such a fun time. We got to meet a young Keenan, in this movie, and he introduced us to a little something called the knuckle puck. And I don't know a kid out here who didn't have a hockey stick who did not try to do the knuckle puck at one time, and who didn't want to be a part of the Bash Brothers and just that whole crew. What a great movie in D2, The Mighty Ducks.
I mean, you're right. I think the first Mighty Ducks was good. It introduced a good, solid foundation for, I guess, what became a franchise. But D2, I do feel like just took it up to that next level. The Bash Brothers were always my favorite for the team. You really hit everything already, so I don't want to repeat anything you already said. I actually completely forgot that's a young Keenan on there. But as soon as you said it, like his image from D2 popped into my head. I'm like, oh, yeah, duh. Of course that's Keenan. But I enjoyed the movie very much. I love it. I actually haven't seen it in a long time. I might need to go back and watch it now.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think D2 was better than the original Mighty Ducks, and you can't change my mind on it. I think the story was better. I think everything about the movie was better. Of course, it's dealing with the younger kids, not these bunch of grown kids going against the Canadians, and it's just like I love D2 way more than the Mighty Ducks. Personal story.
All righty, Mr. JD, your next one, please, sir.
My next one is if you build it, they will come. We're talking about the Field of Dreams, boys. The Field of Dreams. And this is where a farmer wakes up one morning to a whispering voice in the wind saying, if you build it, they will come, and has no idea what this means. And throughout his history and scavenging and talking with all these different people, he realizes he needs to build a baseball field for ghosts to come and play so he can watch. And then not only can he see the ghosts, then everybody else can start seeing the ghosts or spirits or whatever they are. And these guys come out only at night to play baseball. absolutely good movie. I think it was a good mystery kind of starting of it, where this guy's hearing the whispers, then kind of looks like he's going crazy because he gets rid of some of his field. He's already having money issues. The bank's going to foreclose on his home, and he goes ahead and cuts out some of the crops that he was already doing so that he could create a baseball field. And eventually, at the end, we know the whole town comes to watch these legends, from the Yankees. I think it was the Yankees, right? Or maybe it was the White Sox. I can't remember. And they came and played baseball, and everybody came to watch them. And it was a good movie. It was a good feel-good movie. Obviously, it had some good characters in it at the time. But one of my, probably from when I was the youngest, this is probably the youngest movie that I remember watching about baseball, other than Ed, and actually enjoying. And Ed was on my list, but I took it off.
This was one of those movies, like we talked on the show before about taglines, and you said it to start off your, presentation. If you build it, they will come. And I remember seeing that on every poster for this movie. It was in every commercial. It was a repeated thing in pop culture for years and years and years afterwards, man. Like that was the one thing you took from this movie. And if you actually watch the movie, for people that have never seen Field of Dreams, it's definitely worth a good watch. If you've never seen it before, it's a good movie and has a nice message to it, man. It's basically about a kid who he never got to say bye to his father, and he gets a chance to do so through this game. So, it's a really good movie, man. Powerful messaging, and one of the all-time classic sports movies, man.
I mean, absolutely, one of the most classic, if not the most classic. When you announced this topic on our last episode, saying we're going to be talking about sports movies, this was the first movie that popped into my head. Out of every sports movie we have on our list, this was the very first one that entered my head, because it's that classic, iconic sports movie. And you're right, that tagline, if you build it, they will come. Everyone knows it. Everyone recognizes it. They know what it's from. They know what you mean by it. It's such a great movie. And such a touching movie too. Probably one of the first like sports tearjerkers out there. His life is in shambles. And what makes sense for him to build his crop, grow his crop, sell the crop, save his farm, he instead destroys most of it to build a baseball diamond in the middle of nowhere, just for ghosts to come hang out and play. No one's paying him money, but it ends up obviously saving the farm at the end. Great. Just a great feel-good movie.
Well, even when go ahead, sorry, Dave.
I was going to kick it over to Koo for his next one, but if you got something, jump in.
I was going to say, the part where his daughter chokes on a hot dog and they have to cross over, I think was one of those moments that you could hear a lot of people like kind of tearing up because he had to give up something to kind of save his daughter. And there's this big long like backstory behind it. And it was like, oh my God, like he comes over and is actually a doctor and saves her life. And had he not built this and been in that situation, then that would have existed and all that. So, you had this paradox going on, but I think everybody at that moment, you could hear crying when people were watching it, because it was such a weird event, right? That this spirit crosses over and becomes a doctor, and now it's no longer part of the game. So,
all right, Mr. Koo, your next one, please, sir.
All right. When you are preparing to take part in a sport, it's very important to understand the fundamentals, right? You have to make sure you know how to play the sport. And what better than having a high school video teach you the 5 important elements of this sport? I'm talking about dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. Got to dodge twice. And always remember, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. I'm talking about dodgeball. Available only exclusively on ESPN 8, The Ocho. This movie had me... See, you two are laughing just from that. This movie had me laughing from start to finish. There is not a bad scene in here. Every part of it is hilarious. And when it comes to sports commentary, there's a lot of movies where you have sports commentators making their calls and trying to be funny. But I don't think anything tops Jason Bateman in Dodgeball. He is hilarious. I cry laughing on his scenes because he is just that good. But Dodgeball for me was always such a great movie. Always makes me laugh. And whenever I see some of the actors like Vince Vaughn, I always immediately think of Dodgeball.
This is one of my favorite comedy movies ever, dude. Like one of the ones when you initially see the trailer for it, you're like, man, that looks dumb as hell. And then you see it, and it is absolutely drop you on the floor, hilarious, man. Like there's a couple actors on here who they're in several of the movies that we'll be talking about today. But Ben Stiller, once again in this one, man, and plays the perfect leader of Globo Gym, dude. Like this dude is awesome. You know, nobody makes me bleed my own blood. Like, you know, it's like the one-liners in there are absolutely hilarious, man. Like, you know, the fact dude shows up with like this like tight suit on and an ascot for a date and has like Michelle pick him up on a scooter, man, when he rides away. Like it's so hilarious, man. I love Dodgeball.
But it's definitely like you said. I think a lot of people discounted this movie at the very beginning because they're like, Dodgeball. I'm not going to go watch this movie about dodgeball, and how is that supposed to be funny? And then when you watch it, you're like, who the hell sat around the table and instead of doing acid did LSD? Because unlike the Mario Brothers movie where they did acid, these guys did LSD and actually had fun with this movie and made it funny.
And I mean, one of the most iconic lines, of course, fucking Chuck Norris. If it wasn't for Chuck Norris, that's right. So, this movie, and for those who have seen it and maybe don't believe in hanging out after the credits, like you should be doing for most movies, go back and watch Dodgeball. Hang out after the credits. You get a little treat from Ben Stiller. Just saying.
And for those of you who are wanting to watch Dodgeball right after this, like me, Amazon Prime. If you're there, you get it for free. You can watch it right now.
All right. I'm going to end this short. I'm going to go watch Dodgeball.
I guess that's going to jump me onto my next movie. And ladies and gentlemen, there are very few movies that capture the essence of Texas high school football. If it's one thing we know here in Texas, it's some good old-fashioned pigskin. It is a damn religion down here. People spend literally hundreds of millions of dollars on stadiums for high school teams down here in Texas because we take it very seriously here in Texas. It is an absolute thing. You can find the merch of your schools sold in sporting goods stores just like pro teams because that's how we do it here in Texas. And what movie captures that essence in all its glory? Varsity Blues. There was one gentleman from the 90s who he was well on his way to being one of the GOATs in Hollywood. And I don't know what happened along that trip, but he had some hits along the way, and this was one of them. And I'm talking about none other than James Van Der Beek and his role as Mox, the star quarterback of the West Canaan Coyotes. Ladies and gentlemen, Varsity Blues is a classic movie. Another one that gives us a classic movie villain with Coach Bud Kilmer. You know, gave us some great characters with Billy Bob, the star wide receiver Tweeter, and all that stuff. And some classic scenes from this movie. If you know, you know about the good old whipped cream scene. We all seen this scene and we knew what it was about. So, ladies and gentlemen, Varsity Blues for your consideration.
I mean, you couldn't pick a better actress than Ali Larter to do the whipped cream scene. And I just love, like, even the spoofs off it. Like, they had that run of spoof movies, like another scary movie, but they had like another sports movie, and they had the I think it was Chris Evans, wasn't it? He came out in
teen movie.
Not another teen movie. Chris Evans comes out in a whipped cream bikini. That was just hilarious. But no, this is a great movie. Varsity Blues, again, it's one of those solid, like, foundational sports films, especially when it comes to high school football. You're right. I lived in Texas for a short amount of time, and just the size of these stadiums and like the traffic as people are trying to pull into these stadiums. And I remember when I first moved to Texas, like, high school football wasn't big in Colorado where I'm from, but like I would drive by, I'm like, what is all this traffic? And like whoever was in the car was like, it's the football game. And I'm like, college? There's no colleges around here. They go, no, high school. And I'm like, no way. But then you see like Varsity Blues and it's like, oh, it makes sense. I get it now. Great movie. Absolutely love that one too.
I don't want to wait. Paralyzed. Oh, sorry, wrong one. That's where he went.
wrong.
That's where he went wrong. I think, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, Dawson's Creek. Yeah. So Billy Bob, absolutely, probably the funniest character in my opinion of this entire show, just because it's just a good old boy. You know, it's someone that you just look at, you just like, and he'd probably be fun, you know, running around and chucking a shotgun. It's just like that's the guy I see out in the woods in Indiana all the time. Billy Bob. Perfect name. This movie was great. It is all about Texas. It is all about Texas football. It's everything that you kind of remember about a football movie, right? You have an awful coach who is just like running these poor kids to the ground and has no regard for really their health or safety at the end of this, and is all in the name of football and trying to win that championship. And I think this was a great movie. I love this movie. This is one of the first football movies I ever watched, and was actually one of the first football movies that got me into football just because of the way it was done, and I liked it. Even the whipped cream scene with the cherries.
Can't forget the cherry on top.
Can't forget the cherry on top.
All right, Mr. JD, your next one, please, sir.
So mine is the next one I'm going to go ahead and do is one that I just added onto the list. Well, not I just added, but added right before we kicked off, and that is Draft Day. This movie is about a coach who is, or not a coach, is over a GM trying to draft a perfect football team for the Browns. That should say all you need to know about the movie. No, I'm kidding. And they drafted for the Browns, and he's trying to pick a great team, and he makes a lot of different moves throughout the entire draft season, and you know, trading off number one picks and not consulting the coaches because the owner wants them to make a big splash, right? And at the end of the day, he ends up swapping all these places and then screws over the Chargers at the same time by getting them to give up all their draft picks and give them back everything that they swapped for just so they can get a receiver that they could have got at 7th place and 1st place. So end of the day, it was actually a movie that was discounted and not given the credit it was due. I ended up watching this on, I think it was HBO, and I ended up getting really into it. And I couldn't believe that a movie as boring as Draft Day would be so interesting to watch and actually get me hooked. And at the end of this, I was just like, this was an awesome movie. I couldn't believe it. Just one that hooked me that I would not expect it to hook me.
I can't actually believe I'm going to be the first to say this. I have not seen this movie.
That's right. Give it to me. Give it to me.
I was hoping to hold out, but apparently I'm the first who's going to have to say it this episode. I have not seen Draft Day.
Clip it, send it. Clip it, send it.
Look, Draft Day, like I've said before, very underrated, man. It's a very good movie. It's very rewatchable. It's one of those things that, like, you know, if you've seen it before, it doesn't matter what scene you jump in on, it's all good, man. It's a really good movie. And I mean, at the very least, you should watch it at least once just to see how the story plays out, because it is cool how they get from the beginning to the end of the movie and then how everything shakes out. So, and my favorite twist of the whole movie is the little sticky note in the pocket. That's my favorite thing out of the entire movie. Like, so I really enjoy that. And my favorite line from the movie is when he calls the Seahawks back and he has Tom on the phone and he has him by the balls basically. And he knows he's about to screw him over. So he presents this deal to him and he tells him, he was like, he said, come on, give me an answer. And he's like, come on, you pancake eating motherfucker. Like, that's my favorite line out of the entire movie. I love it. And it's really rewatchable, man. And R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman. He was in there too. So shout out to him for that.
That is probably the best line of that entire movie. I will agree. And that's the first thing I think of when I actually think of Draft Day is that line there. Because, you know, he's screwing him. He's eating pancakes. He's like, I'm just sitting here eating my pancakes. And then at the end, when he's screwing him over, he's at the stadium and he's not even eating pancakes. But that's what he remembers when he was getting screwed over. So in return, he's like, you go ahead and take it, you pancake eating motherfucker. And then he's like, fine. Because he knows that was the point that he screwed him. And that's why he's getting screwed in return.
I love that line, man. All right, Mr. Coob, since you don't watch anything now, your next one, please, sir.
It's because he's homeless and he works as a caddy.
That's right.
Don't
I
go
work
on
as
to
a
him.
caddy. That's it. So for my next pick, I am going back to the 90s, back when basketball was king. This movie came out and had one of the best soundtracks to go along with it. It involved a little unknown basketball player. He played for a not a very powerful team, the Chicago Bulls, in the middle of the 90s. And he teams up with some of the greatest athletes you've ever seen. I'm talking Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Porky Pig. No, I'm talking about Michael Jordan in Space Jam, one of my childhood staples when it came to sports movies. So for those who have been living under a rock and have no idea what this movie is about, or think that the upcoming one with LeBron is actually the first one, which it's not, Space Jam was a live-action cartoon mix. It's Michael Jordan with the Looney Tunes. The Looney Tunes are in trouble of getting made into slaves by aliens, and they get challenged to a basketball game for the fate of their lives. The aliens cheat and go steal the abilities of some of the best NBA players at the time, so they go and recruit Michael Jordan to help them out. It's a great movie. It's so much fun to watch. You have some great cameos in there from Larry Bird, a lot of the top NBA players at that time. And of course, the legendary Bill Murray is in there. But this was such a fun movie, and it led to, like I said, one of the greatest soundtracks of the 90s with Basketball Jones and, of course, R. Kelly's I Believe I Can Fly.
Come on and slam, and welcome to the jam. One of the most iconic soundtracks in the history, not of only sports movies, but of movies in general. The numbers that this soundtrack did were absolutely insane back then. People bought this soundtrack without even seeing the damn movie. And it did incredible numbers. One song specifically, I Believe I Can Fly, by none other than Redacted. We won't mention his name on the podcast, but this gentleman put out a hit of all hits. This song was everywhere. It was in churches. It was at graduations. It was everywhere because it was such a smash hit at the time. Space Jam was an insane movie. If you were a young kid in the 90s, this was your Super Bowl, was seeing this movie right here. It involved the greatest athlete of all time and then cartoon characters. And they were playing basketball against some aliens. And what better outcome could you have than Bugs Bunny and Michael Jordan taking on the Monstars and kicking ass? It was awesome, man. I love Space Jam, and I'm very sad that LeBron James could not go do his own thing, and he decided to copy the GOAT.
Yeah, I would agree. This movie had something for everybody. It had the Looney Tunes in it. It had a athlete, not just an athlete, one of the most liked athletes in probably sports history from any sport. Everybody liked Michael Jordan. Everybody knew who he was. And outside of the sports game, he was one of the top morale type people you can meet. Always happy. He's kind of like the Shaq today, right? That was buying stuff for people at stores when they didn't have enough money and was just that community outreach type person. And then you had famous people like Bill Murray in it from Ghostbusters, which was just fresh off, and you had all these big names in there. So it had something for everybody. And of course, then it also had a sport in it, right? Which is what a lot of people like because, especially in America, we're very competitive, right? And so it doesn't matter what it is. If we can get all those together and make a movie, it's generally going to do well. And when you add those great elements together, famous people, Michael Jordan, Looney Tunes, you have to have a movie that's going to go to number one. And this movie did it. And I don't think there was a single kid who didn't know I Believe I Could Fly from the 90s. Because if you didn't, nobody knew who you were because you probably lived under a rock or in a sewer with it. Okay? Changed my mind.
I remember I wore that CD out listening to that soundtrack. I had my Sony Discman, the old one with anti-skip technology.
60 seconds.
I wore that CD out. It was such a good soundtrack. I agree with you, D. I kind of wish LeBron kind of did his own thing. I'm personally a little tired of hearing like LeBron versus Michael, who's the real GOAT. It's two different generations, right? Because everyone says you put these two up, against each other right now, and LeBron's going to dominate. Well, yeah, Michael's old. He can't really play like he did the days. But I'd be curious, of course, prime of his game Michael versus prime of his game LeBron, who would win? But we'll never find out. But I'm worried about the next Space Jam. I don't know. I mean, I'm probably going to see it just because of the nostalgic factor of it. I'm worried it's going to ruin the first one, but I just love that the original.
Awesome movie, man. Awesome. Well, might as well keep it in the theme of basketball. Ladies and gentlemen, this movie combines three of my favorite things in the entire world. One of my favorite directors is Spike Lee. One of my favorite actors, Denzel Washington. And my favorite absolute basketball player of all time is none other than Ray Allen. And that is He Got Game. Ladies and gentlemen, 1998 was a great year for me. I remember when this movie came out, me and my father would have these one-on-one battles playing basketball one-on-one, and I could never beat this old man. And I told him, I said, Dad, if I beat you, will you take me to see He Got Game? Because it was releasing and I really wanted to see it. And he told me, sure. So we played, and I played this man every day for a week, and he would kick my ass. And then finally, that last day, I was able to secure the victory by just never missing any of my shots. I made literally every shot that day and got to go see the movie. And it turned out to be my favorite basketball movie of all time. And it gave us the single greatest nickname for any athlete in the history of sports. I don't want to even argue about this, and that is Jesus Shuttlesworth for Ray Allen. The name is so iconic, people don't even call him by his real name anymore. It's Jesus Shuttlesworth. When you watched him play in the NBA, all his shoes had Jesus Shuttlesworth on them. They didn't even have his real name anymore. So what an iconic movie. I absolutely love this movie. It is about a father who is in prison for manslaughter on his own wife. He gets into an argument and accidentally pushes his wife, kills her, and he has a prodigy of a son who comes up and is the #1 high school basketball recruit in the country. And the warden of the jail makes a deal with him and says, if you can get your son to sign to my alma mater, we will grant you early parole for killing your wife. And so that is the plot of the story. And then off we are with Jake Shuttlesworth trying to convince his son Jesus to sign with Big State University, made up college.
I have only seen bits and pieces of this movie and never the full thing through. Though I'm not as bad as Coop today, where I haven't actually seen the movie. I have only seen bits and pieces of this movie.
Does that really count if you've only seen bits and pieces?
I'm still better than you, homeless man, no matter what you say.
All right. Well, since JD is absolutely useless, I'll go ahead and talk about my opinion on this. So I have seen this movie in whole, by the way, not just bits and pieces of it. My homeless butt has seen it.
That was back in his heyday when he was actually on money.
That's right. When actually he wasn't homeless. People listening to this pod are gonna have no idea what we're talking about. You really need to see to understand this. But for those who are just listening, I have a really shaggy beard going on right now. I didn't get time to clean up, so I look homeless.
Make sure you go to YouTube and play that podcast. Yeah. And you can watch how homeless he looks.
How homeless I look. Pull up a video of the caddy from Happy Gilmore and do a comparison side by side. No, I loved He Got Game. I've only seen it a couple times. I haven't really seen it a lot, so there's a lot of information I don't remember. I do remember the nickname he's given, and then the plot, like the overall plot. You see this a lot in sports movies, right? Maybe not a lot, but you see it in others, like The Longest Yard. One that was on here that we swapped out for another. But this theory, or this plot of, if you come play for me or you help me out in your sport, I will grant you early release. I will grant you something. I will give you something if you sell yourself out. I mean, it works, obviously. It's a plot that works with a lot of movies, and a lot of movies are popular because of it. But He Got Game was just, it was one of those, like, kind of the start to them. You don't really see a lot of movies prior to that doing that. But absolute great cast in it. I'm going to have to go back and watch it for sure, because it was one I remember really enjoying and really liking. So I need to go back and watch it.
Well, Mr. JD, your next one, please, sir.
What do you get when a pro football team decides to strike when there's only 4 games left in the season and you could make it to the playoffs. That game would be called The Replacements. And you call in the replacements so that you take over, and they're basically scabs that take over for the pro team. And what do you get? Keanu Reeves, also known as Mr. John Wick, comes in as a quarterback and drafts together, or the coach drafts together, some of the worst rugged people you'll ever find to play football. Some of them are washouts, some of them are drug addicts, some of them are just put together wrong. And they play, and Keanu Reeves leads them to victory, of course, but then not before being replaced by the quarterback who crosses over the picket line towards the very end so that he can secure the victory and look like he is the greatest quarterback. One of the best quotes from this movie is about when they're talking about their fears. And they're all sitting there and he's like, I'm afraid of spiders and I'm afraid of this, that, the next thing. And Keanu Reeves' character spins up and goes, I'm afraid of quicksand. And they are like, oh, yeah, that shit's crazy. You know, it can get you caught. And he's like, that's not what I'm talking about. He said, what I'm talking about is when you make the wrong move and the harder you fight, the quicker you sink and things are collapsing around you and eventually you just can't breathe. That was quoted so many different places when that movie came out. And that movie didn't even make that big of a splash in the box office. That one line was quoted in a lot of different places. I thought this movie was great. Another one is when you see the red shirt, don't hit it. You stop. Red means stop. Because one of the guys that they had that were playing a tackle just kept railing the quarterback during practice, and he was like, you're not supposed to hit the quarterback. So they put him in, and obviously was in red shirt, and they ended up having to change that towards the end when they were playing another team who was wearing red. But all in all, probably one of the better movies with Keanu Reeves in it, up to John Wick.
I mean, who knew that before he was an international assassin, he was a quarterback?
That's right.
John Wick can just do everything. Obviously, this is a different person. I agree. This was a great Keanu Reeves movie. This was kind of around the time in his career where he was kind of hit or miss. Like, yeah, he either put out a great movie or a really bad movie. He wasn't the action star that he is today with all his good movies. I pulled it up here because I wanted to see the cast because I don't really remember a lot of the cast in it, other than the great Gene Hackman. Talk about an underrated actor, if you ask me, in today's world. I think he is an incredible actor. But I did not know this was actually loosely based off of an actual strike in the NFL and the Washington Redskins. Now the Washington team. Which now makes sense because the team was the Washington Sentinels, Guardians, something like that in the movie. So it kind of makes sense about that. But I mean, what a great movie to have not even your B, C, or D squad. You're literally having a completely outside team come in who's not affiliated with a strike to play football, NFL football, professional football. But man, did I hate that quarterback when he came back at the very end. I'm like, no, you did not earn any of this. But great movie. Again, great Keanu Reeves movie.
You look at the major characters that were in here. A lot of these guys ended up going on to like big names. You know, Gene Hackman played in a lot of movies. Keanu Reeves, obviously. You have Orlando Jones, who went on to be pretty big. Michael Telefero went on to go do a lot of movies as well. And
well, we got, the man goat himself, Jon Favreau, man. Like father, the precursor to the MCU. And the Mandalorian, dude, like he was in there as Danny Bateman. He was awesome in there. I mean, my favorite line from the movie is from Orlando Jones playing as Clifford Franklin. And it's when he can't catch a pass. This dude's hands are terrible. He's fast as all get out, but he can't catch a cold. And so Coach McGinty gives him, he said, give me the stickum. And he rubs it all over his hands. And dude's hands are just greasy. He's like, Coach, it looks like I just jacked off an elephant. And that is my favorite line from that whole movie, man. But the stickum is so much on his hands, like they throw the ball and it's just stuck to him. He can't even give it to the ref afterwards. Like, dude, that is a hilarious movie. The Replacements is awesome, man. That's another one. If it's on, gotta check it out, man.
Yep. It's funny you talk about the stickum, and my mind immediately went to Little Giants, that football movie. Hot Hands Hannon, and he gets that stuff, and he claps. He's like, oh no, he can't separate my hands.
It gets stuck to his jersey and it's pulling apart. Yeah, dude, that was another good one. But good pick, man. All right, Mr. Coov, your next one, please, sir.
All right. Where do I want to go with this? All right. So for my next one, I'm going to move over to the sport of baseball. And I know the guys are looking at the list and going, wait a minute, both of his last movies are on baseball. But I'm talking about what happens when all the men who play baseball go off to war. And baseball is such an American pastime. You have to have baseball. So this takes place during, I think, World War One, maybe two. I don't remember. All the men have gone off to war, so they start up a women's league for baseball. I'm talking about A League of Their Own. This was a great movie that is about a female baseball league and their struggles to try to kind of survive in America when, sexism is such a huge thing and women are meant to be in the kitchen and they're not meant to be playing sports. But they get coached by the magnificent Tom Hanks, and I think one of his greatest roles I've ever seen him in, who leads to one of the best iconic lines, "There's no crying in baseball," which I still use to this day, even if it's not about baseball.
That was a pretty good Hanks, man.
You like that? That was good. I was working on that. But we learned a lot from this movie. We learned Madonna cannot act, so she should not be an actress. But I highly recommend this movie to anybody who hasn't seen it. It's a great feel good movie. You get some incredible acting out of it, especially out of Tom Hanks, who's kind of a drunk coach who just doesn't care because he doesn't think women should be playing baseball either. Check it out if you haven't. It's one of those classic movies and a classic film.
Dude, I absolutely loved this movie growing up, man. Like you said, Tom Hanks is so amazing in there as the coach. And, like you said, the whole interaction with him when he shows up with the team, he's drunk at first and doesn't really give a damn. He's just there to collect the check. And, his first interaction, he walks in the locker room, pulls up to a urinal, and just starts peeing right in front of the ladies. And they're just
For a
staring
long
at him
time.
like they're just staring awkwardly at him. And then he leaves. And then eventually he starts to realize some of these girls can actually play. And then he realizes he can work with them. And then the whole dynamic changes and the whole movie turns around. Like you said, Madonna can't act to save her life. But the rest of the ladies in there carried that cast in a huge way. Lori Petty was amazing. Gina Davis was amazing. Even Rosie O'Donnell in there, did her thing. So, hell of a movie.
Have a personal connection to this movie. But you didn't see that coming, did
I
you?
did not. I'm like, bring it. I'm ready.
I have a personal connection to this movie. My wife's older sister played one of the girls inside the fans at the stadium. Boom. Mic drop. I'm out. She actually didn't even think that League of Your Own would be on anybody's list because it was a chick flick. She's like, no way that was that going to be in there. And I said, it's Coop's number one. Changed my mind.
My number two.
So, oh, it's number one on your list, though.
Oh, yeah. In order, it's my number one.
Yeah. So I was like, really good movie, obviously. I do think they had a lot of big names playing in it at the time, too. And a lot of people that went on to go be big names down the road. Even today in some of these movies, they're still playing. Rosie O'Donnell was kind of hitting her prime at that point, too. She was playing in the Flintstones, which a lot of you probably don't even know what that is, but it's about, dinosaurs and Stone Age and all that fun stuff. But I mean, there was a lot of big names in this. This was a really good movie. Tom Hanks was playing in it at the time. This was a great set of cast. All but Madonna was a great set of cast that was playing together and made you want to root for that team. And I think a lot of people were originally put off because it's about girls playing baseball, and they're like, girls don't play baseball. But by the end of this, you're looking at them and you're like, girls can play baseball.
I mean, Gina Davis does an incredible job as the pitcher of that team, of the Peaches. I can't remember the city. I mean, she just gives one hell of a performance. I mean, you just kind of ride along with her, and you're like, you root for her. You just want her to succeed because she's trying to keep the team together. She's the perfect opposite to Tom Hanks's character in there because they just butt heads on everything. For me, I mean, it's the ending of the movie for me that always gets me. When they all come back and they're older, they've swapped out all the actors, I think, except Gina. I think they kind of put her in aged makeup. And just kind of seeing them all get together again. I just love that movie.
Well, that's going to bring me to my next one. And ladies and gentlemen, the true mark of a movie is a great villain, a solid villain. And this movie gave us one of the greatest movie villains of all time. All you need to do is say a few simple words, and people will know exactly who you were talking about. And that is, if he dies, he dies. You know exactly who I mean. It is Ivan Drago from Rocky 4, ladies and gentlemen. The movie starts off with none other than a boxing exhibition taking place. And you see Apollo Creed coming in all his just cocky glory. He comes in draped in the American flag, has James Brown singing and sweating his ass off. And he's coming in to living in America. I feel good. And he comes in and he walks up to the humongous Ivan Drago, and the man doesn't say a word. He just looks Ivan Drago dead in the face, and Drago looks right back down at him and tells him to his face, "Juvelus," and then pounds his gloves and then proceeds to beat this man to death. He beats a classic and Apollo Creed to death. And then that is what sets the movie on its path. Now Rocky is on the path of revenge, and he wants to get this big Russian dude hyped up on steroids back for killing his best friend. And so that sets up a classic in Rocky 4 and what happens to be one of the greatest training montages of all time, along with one of the best movie fights of all time. So classic movie with Rocky 4.
Yeah, I think all the Rockies were obviously a big hit. It's why they led off to such a long spew of Rockies and quotes from Rocky movies. And I mean, hell, they're even coming out with Rocky movies, the past couple of years, right? They launched one of the older ones, and it just Rocky in general was always a good movie. I don't think a lot of people were originally going to get into it because it was about boxing. And while boxing was good for the older folk, the newer folk really couldn't get into boxing. And I think Rocky kind of was that bridgeway to help them get into boxing. And of course, the longer the movies went on, the more brutal they got, right? And became a lot better to watch, and people really started gravitating to them. And talk about a character that just always talks like this, and it actually makes the movie end up being really good. You probably wouldn't get that today if that franchise was launched with someone like that. I don't think he'd be as relatable to these younger kids. But definitely to the older generation, that was kind of your, Clint Eastwood kind of gateway, right? That was the kind of talking that they did, that man's man kind of talk. And it's a really good movie all in all. Love the Rocky movies. Can't go wrong. Cannot go wrong.
I have not seen all the Rocky movies, but I've seen this one, so you can't get me on that. No, I love Rocky 4. I saw the panic in your guys' eye. Well, except JD. He looked a little too gleeful for me.
I was accepting podcast applications.
Yeah, right. No, I like Rocky 4. You're right. Talk about a villain that you just love to hate from top to bottom, from start to finish. I mean, his pounding of Apollo Creed, you just wanted to jump through the screen and help him out. Not help him kill Apollo. You want to help Apollo out. But you're right. It has some of the best training montage you've ever seen that's been spoofed across all other movies, or other movies, cartoons, and things like that. I mean, talk about a time in our own history where, Russia's the great enemy, right? Like, we just don't trust Russia in any way, shape, or form. It was worse back when this movie came out. So you put a Russian villain and you just have a winner for a top villain. I mean, talk about that excitement. What is it? Round 2 of the fight with Rocky and Ivan, and he gets that right hook in, just right across the eye. Like, you feel that, and you just want to jump up and cheer. Good Rocky movie. The whole Rocky franchise is incredible. At least the ones I've seen, I've enjoyed every single one of them. Those are ones that are on my list to go back and rewatch and make sure I watch them all. And then, of course, with now the spin-offs with Creed, which is Apollo's son, another good movie that I saw was on the list but dropped off.
Next time.
2.0.
All right, Mr. JD Hugh, your last one, please, sir.
Well, mom always said, you don't brush them teeth, they fall out. We're talking about The Waterboy, ladies and gentlemen, another Adam Sandler movie. This movie spawned every spinoff that happened with Adam Sandler had a lot of this cast in it going forward. And some of them, even when he wasn't the main character, he would play a supporting role. Like in Deuce Bigelow, he would be that supporting character.
You can do it!
You can do it! Right? And so this movie kind of was... It was a weird movie to start with. Obviously, this guy is a water boy for the football team. He lives with his mom out in the swamp somewhere. Never dreamed about going to college, and he gets drafted to be on the team. And other teams start messing around with their people. You have the towel boy who goes in and plays and gets absolutely demolished because he's 4 foot, 5'4", 100-pound soaking wet, and just goes up against these guys and gets brutally murdered. Of course, then they find out that he's not actually in college because he never passed the GED to get in, so then he has to take the GED exam so that he can continue to play. And he gives this no-name school, underrated school, a chance at victory. Waterboy was probably the football movie that was funny to make fun of, and also had a great cast that people loved quoting, right? Mom always said that was everything for the longest time. Mom always said that those Gators are so mad because they ain't got no toothbrush to brush all them teeth. No, it's because they have a Duma Oblongata.
Something's wrong with your Abdullah Oblongata.
Well, Mama's wrong again. No, you're wrong, Colonel Sanders. Waterboy is one of the funniest sports movies of all time. If you've never seen it, it is definitely worth sitting down and watching it at least once. If you have a goofy sense of humor, I guarantee you will laugh several times throughout this movie. One of my favorite lines isn't even from Adam Sandler. It's from the coach when they show up and bust the water boy for not taking his exams and all that stuff. And the officer shows up and he tells the officer to arrest Vicky Valancourt. And he's like, "Officer, now get her country ass on out of here." And they arrest her and take her off. Like, I absolutely love Waterboy. It's given us some of the most memorable characters. It's given us not only that, like, they give us the old Cajun dude who you can barely understand anything he says. It's like it's all sounds jumbled and everything, and it's just heavy Cajun in his accent and all that stuff. Vicky Valancourt, Vicky Valancourt showed me them boobies and I like them too. Captain Insano and all that stuff, man. So, movie is absolutely insane, man, and very hilarious.
I mean, and what a cast that he put together, right? So, I mean, obviously Adam Sandler himself is still a legend for those types of movies. But then you have like Kathy Bates in there as Mama, and she plays such a great role there. You have Henry Winkler as the coach, who is just funny. I mean, anything Henry Winkler's in is hilarious, and he paired up with Adam Sandler. He did Little Nicky later on for a quick cameo. Those poor bees. But Waterboy, you're right. So many iconic lines, like as even all the ones you guys have said. I'm thinking of more like they sing "Water sucks." It really, really sucks. I mean, I don't know if he could get away with doing that today, because he kind of plays a certain character, but such a funny movie. It's one that I never get tired of. And again, if it's on TV, I'm going to stop and watch it because it is just a great movie to pick up at any spot. No matter where you are, you're going to start laughing at the movie.
Some high quality H2O.
That's high quality H2O.
Dude, Waterboy is hilarious, man. It's funny like seeing all these movies now because now that I have a son, that's in his teens, he's never seen some of this stuff. So I showed him Waterboy for the first time like last year, and it's one of his favorite movies now. He loves that movie and thinks it's absolutely hilarious. And same thing with Happy Gilmore. Like, he's a big fan of those. So it's cool that now that we're older, all this stuff is coming around to the younger generation, and now they get to enjoy it. So that's big time right there. All right, Mr. Coov, your last one, please, sir.
All right. I know why JD and I are laughing. For my last one, we're still sticking to the realm of baseball, but I'm going to take you to a more wholesome time. Back when baseball was played on a dirt field, I just mean all dirt, in backyards or even the town park. Gave us some great lines, such as learning who Baby Ruth is. If you don't know who Baby Ruth is, you don't know baseball. How to elongate the word forever. Forever. And my favorite quote whenever JD sells in Warzone, "You're killing me, Smalls." Talking about Sandlot. The first. They made another. I don't recognize it as existing, the second one. There's only one Sandlot. Just one. But this is probably my favorite when it comes to on my list of sports movies. It's another one I grew up with watching. It's such a good movie to me. There's so many good parts in it. A lot of the actors on there didn't really go on to go do too much more. At least not to nowadays. Like they continue to do movies back then. But you had just so many great moments of a kid who moves to this town, doesn't really have any friends. He joins this group of guys playing baseball, and he doesn't really know baseball, like how to play or even what it is. Hence, Babe Ruth. And it's narrated by him as an adult, but it's just a lot of great parts in him. I don't want to talk about them all because I'm sure the guys have some of their favorites, so I'm going to hand that off to whoever's next.
It's all about such a good time with this movie, man. It was all about making a summer memory with your friends and hoping that you and your friends had an adventure where you would have to battle against a beast of your own. You know, that's what it was about as friends, man. The Sandlot was like the ultimate kids movie because it combined everything you love. Sports with your friends, fun adventures with your friends, and then if you had your big group of friends, you could all pretend to be somebody from this group, no matter who it was. You know, you always had it had a little bit of everything. You had the kid who would never stop running his mouth. You had the kid like yeah, who was just like yeah. You had the kid like Smalls. You had the kid that was fast. And all that stuff. So Sandlot encapsulated all that stuff into a wonderful sports movies. This is one of the all-time classics. There is nobody on the planet who has seen this movie who does not recognize the line either forever or "you're killing me, Smalls." Like those two lines right there are iconic, man, in the movie, spectrum.
I mean, what else can you say about this movie? I think my favorite quote from this movie is, "If my dog was as ugly as you, I'd shave its butt and make it walk backwards."
Play baseball like a girl.
That's it. It's Baby Ruth, some girl named Ruth, I guess.
I don't know, some woman named Baby Ruth.
So many good lines in this that were just funny. I mean, when you were a kid watching this, you could relate to these kids because you were around their age, I don't know if kids today could get this, but it was definitely one that you grew up with and just loved. And there wasn't a whole lot of movies out when this was out. So when this hit, I mean, you watched it and it was entertaining. This was like Little Rascal time, right? You watched this and you just thoroughly enjoyed it. It was funny. The kids were stupid funny. I mean, you just really kind of came into it and really liked it. And it was about baseball, but it was like backyard baseball. And, Babe Ruth signed a ball and the dog ends up eating the damn thing. So, funny movie. I love this movie. This is probably one of my favorite baseball movies, hands down.
Sure.
For me, it was all about, watching the scene where they go to the pool and tricking Wendy Peppercorn into giving them CPR and then sneaking some tongue in there and getting dragged out of the pool and banned, for the rest of the summer. Like, that's what it was about, man. The Sandlot is such a memorable film, man. Like, I was the kid in my neighborhood who was like the Benji Rodriguez of my neighborhood. I was always really athletic. I was the fast kid. I jumped higher, all that stuff. So he was my character in the movie. That's who I wanted to be more than anybody. I wanted to hit the home runs. I wanted to play football and be the quarterback who threw the furthest, like all that stuff. So classic movie. I absolutely love The Sandlot. That is going to bring it to my very last film. And ladies and gentlemen, how much better can you get than a sports film based off of a true story? Brought to you by Walt Disney Studios, ladies and gentlemen. Remember the Titans. And would you need no more than this? Good old Coach Herman Boone saying, "We will be perfect in every aspect of the game. You drop a pass, you run a mile. You miss a blocking assignment, you run a mile. You fumble the football, and I will break off my foot in your John Brown hind parts. And then you will run a mile." Perfection. Let's go to work. What a wonderful movie. This is an absolute classic. This is my favorite sports movie of all time. Denzel Washington absolutely killed it as Coach Herman Boone. I actually looked back on the history of the actual school that did it. Now, they did, of course, with movies, they take some liberties when it's based on a true story. But for the most part, this school was awesome, man. And Denzel absolutely killed it as Coach Herman Boone. And the rest of the cast did an amazing job, too. This has some of the most memorable characters you'll ever see. And it's all about a team that came together in the midst of desegregation. And they brought a black school, the top black school in the area, and the top white school in the area, combined them together. And the teams had to come together and figure out how to work as one. And not only that, but they did it to perfection and did not lose a game that season. So remember the Titans, an absolute smash of a classic.
Probably one of Denzel's top movies of all time for his. This movie is incredible from start to finish. And you hit it right. The segregation and the racism that's shown in the movie, they do a great job showing what it was really like back then. Being forced to desegregate back then was a really tough time. And to put this coach in charge of a football team and tell him, you lose one single game and you're out of here. I mean, that is a almost impossible feat to even hit for any team, even nowadays. I mean, you even look at the NFL and there's only been one instance of an undefeated season. So you put this on a black coach in the time of desegregation when the white players and the white coach are just butting heads with you from start to finish and want you to fail. For him to pull it out and still get that perfect season is incredible. And the fact that this is a true story makes it even better.
So, first of all, anything that has Denzel Washington in it, I'm probably going to watch. And that includes even the worst movies that he's in, like Deja Vu. But I love me some Denzel Washington. I think he's a fantastic actor. I think this is probably one of his best films. I think this film in general, I actually didn't end up watching this film until like 2005. It was like 4 or 5 years after the thing came out. And we were watching it for a class assignment actually. And I was like, how did I not know this movie came out? And it was absolutely fantastic. I mean, it had, like you said, it had the segregation, but it had the, through sports and through collaboration and we all want the same goal kind of message. We can come together, and it doesn't matter what our skin color is. It doesn't matter what our beliefs are. At the end of the day, if we work together on the single goal, we're all people and we can achieve it. And I think that message comes on really, really strong here. And I think a lot of movies are probably missing that today. But I think it was probably one of the best films I had seen Denzel Washington in, as well as the actors all together. Obviously, there were some big name actors in this that went on or are still in movies today and are still killing it, that were part of the football team. But I think this is probably, I can watch this movie anytime it's on. I'll put it like that. And I can't watch a lot of movies over and over again. But Remember the Titans is definitely one that I can watch over and over again. And it's about football. I mean, who doesn't love football?
This was
Right?
one of
No.
those movies when it came out that it just absolutely murdered on DVD. Didn't do very well in the initial theater release. I mean, it did okay, but it didn't do like huge numbers. But when it came out on DVD, it smashed all sort of DVD records because it was that good, man. This is an all-time classic sports movie. And like Koob said, one of Denzel's best performances easily, man. It's not even close. And I mean, we can't even forget about Will Patton as like Coach Yost in there. Those two played so well off of one another, just to show like that tension between, the white assistant coach and the black head coach, and how initially they were pitted against each other and then end up working together and just absolutely killing it. So what a tremendous movie. I love that movie. That is going to bring us to the end of the topic this week. And that's going to bring me to the question for the guys. And that is, who is your favorite fictional sports movie athlete of all time? While you guys think about it, I'll go ahead. Since I knew the question was coming, I thought about mine. Mine's is easy. Jesus Shuttlesworth. You know, top basketball prospect in the country, on his way to going on to college and the NBA and all that stuff. And then, like I said, the nickname was so iconic, it transitioned from film to real life. And next thing you know, that's what they call this man in the league, is Jesus Shuttlesworth. So that is my favorite fictional athlete of all time.
I'm going to have to go, probably because it just makes me laugh so much, the Water Boy. I mean, it's such a funny character. A great football player. I mean, he's an incredible linesman. He's able to sack, better than anyone else. He has a heart of gold, even though his morals are from mama and might not quite be accurate. But I think for fictional characters, I got to go Water Boy. He's just too funny.
Man. For me, funny wise, I'm gonna go Will Ferrell and Talladega Nights.
It's not a bad choice.
If I was going for a real sports show, I might pick something else. But if I'm thinking out of the list that we presented here today, as far as pure entertainment value goes, I'm thinking Talladega Nights. No matter what time of day I watch Talladega Nights, I can laugh my butt off at that. It doesn't matter if I'm the most tired I've ever been. If I sit there and see them praying with Domino's Pizza, talking to baby Jesus, I'm going to laugh. I'm just going to. Or with the Wonder Bread sticker over the damn windshield when he's driving, goes, I can't really see out of this, but I do love me some water bread. Anything, or with all due respect, that means I can say whatever I want. No, it doesn't, Bob and Ricky. It doesn't. It sure as hell does. I said with all due respect. So I don't know. Any time of day I can watch Talladega Nights and probably laugh. And so I'll probably go with that. But if we were picking real characters, I would go with something else for sure.
Well, that is our answers for the question. So we'll ask you guys, who are some of your favorite fictional athletes of all time? And you can tell us their answers. And you can do so by sending us an email at podcastplayedup@gmail.com and PlayedUpPodcast on Twitter. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at PlayedUpPodcast. You can listen each week on Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And if you do listen to us, please rate and subscribe to the podcast. It really helps us out, and we enjoy the feedback that you give us. Well, that is it for episode 17 of the Played Up Podcast. Join us next week for episode 18. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking about some of the hardest video game bosses we have faced in our lifetime. So please join us next week. This is going to be it for episode 17. I'm D High. That's the Couv. That's JD Hugh. We'll catch you next time. And as always, don't forget to play it up.